Hi friends, and welcome to the next video. In this video, I want to talk about your relationship to drumming. Now, before we start, I just want to say thank you to everyone who's been sending super thanks and all that stuff. I really appreciate it, and I'm very grateful to you for watching this because I think some of these topics are very important for drummers, for musicians in our careers, in our lives, and it's something that's not talked about anywhere unless you have, a good mentor or people around you that understand what you're doing. So, with that in mind, again, thank you. I really appreciate it. We have guys joining the lesson site all the time from all over the world, and I urge you, if you really want to study for real, check out the lesson site. Okay, our relationship to drumming. Now, this is a super important topic because this relationship you have with drumming can make your life, but it can also ruin your life. A friend of mine who's a great jazz artist, he's so funny. He says this thing all the time. He says, "Jazz ruined my life." I have to laugh because it's kind of funny, but it's ironic, because he has a good sense of what that means. Now, that's what drumming is like also. It can be a great gift to you, but it can be your ruin if you don't know what you're doing, if you're not guided properly. And let's face it, everybody needs guidance. I needed guidance. Everybody needs guidance. It's not like you invented this and you're the first one ever doing it. We all need guidance. Now, I was lucky enough to have people around me, certain people that helped keep my mind together when I was going through these things, like wondering who I was as a person, what it meant to be a musician, what it means in society to be an artist, and all this stuff. So, I was lucky enough to have people that were smart, keeping my mind together. And believe me, there was times where, you know, I was questioning all the time, what am I doing, or why bother, or all kinds of stuff like that. I'm sure we've all gone through it. Now, especially in the West, I think there's this thing where you are not considered successful if you're not rich. Okay. Now, this is a hard battle because you as a musician feel like, man, what a load of baloney, right? But the whole world around you is dealing on these terms, and you have to constantly like fight them off and ignore them and battle that demon and keep your focus on what you're doing. Now, how can that damage your relationship to drumming? Is that it makes your ego confused. It confuses your ego in the sense that you attach yourself, your value, to the words of other people. Like if somebody says, if you're not a millionaire, you're nothing, or they don't understand anything, right? You can't attach your ego to those words, and you can't attach them to your playing either. Okay? It's the razor's edge, being a musician. You can't attach your ego to your playing because you, as a human being, are still very valuable, even if you're not playing drums. Okay? You're great as a drummer, you're great as not a drummer. All the things that people say about your value, you have to take with a grain of salt, because many times they don't even know what they're talking about either. Now, when you want to be a great musician, there are many sacrifices you have to make. many sacrifices. That's going to put a dent in your, let's say, ego if you're attached to material things. Now, I've talked to many great players, and they've got this down. They just laugh at that stuff. They drive beat up cars because they choose to. They understand that a car is not an asset, it's a liability, right? It's something that's taking away money from what you could be putting into your next project. It's ridiculous to think in terms of cars as a success, as a measure of success, right? But some people are so shallow and lost that they do this. And you can't be around that kind of mentality. You have to stay focused. You have to believe in yourself completely, because there's going to be this constant barrage, like I said before. Now, another thing is that if you are, for example, having to do a day gig and trying to play at the same time. Now, this is something very common as well. Perhaps you've overextended yourself, or you have other obligations that you have to meet, and you can't get out of having to pay for things to support a family, or you have a kid, or whatever. Now, that is rough. That's a whole other story. And I personally believe that once you have a kid, your life is not yours anymore. Okay, you owe that kid a place in the world, and you owe him care and clothes and all that stuff. You created that human being, so that's something you have to put priority over drums. So it's a slippery slope when you start to think in terms like this. If your ego is attached to drumming, and you have this situation where you have to work a day job, or you have a family and whatever, I've seen that ruin people's lives, ruin their marriage, ruin their personal life. They are depressed because they're not where they want to be in drumming and all this crazy stuff, right? How to handle those situations. Whether you're single and purely a drumming nerd monster, or you have a family, or you're a part-time drummer, hobbyist, amateur, or you're a pro, whatever, the only way to think about drumming is that it's a spiritual journey. Drumming is a journey. It's not a destination where you can say, I'm a drummer, and suddenly I'm okay. You're never going to be, let's say, finished with drumming. There's always another level to go to. You're never going to be finished with music in that sense, either. There's always something else to do. And it's hard to keep that in mind when you're going through it, I know. But believe me, the way to think about drumming is that it's a spiritual journey. It's a companion in your life. And it's something that should be your refuge, like your secret hideaway from everything. It's something that you should consider almost sacred. It's like the most inner part of you expressed in that art form. Once you are there, there's nothing that can touch you anymore. No outside factors, no person that can come and say you're a loser or you're a winner. It's sometimes bad as well if you think you're somebody and you're not, because drumming is way bigger than anybody. And when you're in that space, you are in a healthy relationship with drumming. When it's a refuge, when it's your friend, when it's a companion, when you're alone and you have drumming. I mean, believe me, I've been in so many countries, where I didn't know anybody, and drumming was with me. It was with me in times of solitude and times of heartbreak and times of joy, and it's always there, you know. It's something that you draw strength from. It should not be something that weakens you. If it's weakening you, it's your ego that's listening to other things and causing you conflict with your value as a human being, right? So I think it's important to talk about these things because, you know, as an artist, I think most artists have this problem too, not only drummers. They have a hard time, you know, keeping their ego in check, or their ego is so low that they are miserable, you know. The way I think about drumming now, you know, I'm not telling you to do this, but the way I think about drumming, I reached a point in my life where I had to decide, okay, I'm going to have to be attached to this fancy car, this nice apartment, and I'm going to have to take whatever gig comes my way and maybe even do something outside of music to continue paying for this ridiculous material things. You know, this is a table, it's a piece of wood. It's not a table, it's a piece of wood that some guy made, okay? It has nothing to do with your value, with your art, okay? So I reached a point where I started to realize these things. This was many, many, many years ago, okay? And I said, what am I doing, you know? What am I doing? I have to straighten this out. So I sold everything I had. Cars, furniture, whatever. I sold it all. Everything that I owned, I made digital. Documents, photos. I used to have tons of photos. I'm a photographer too. I used to have tons of photos, you know, memories, photography and things. I scanned everything. It took me a long time, okay? I made everything digital and I threw everything that was causing me to be anchored down, I threw it away. Clothes, I mean, everything. I basically became a minimalist and decided I'm going to live for drumming. Okay, I'm not going to live to pay some guy's mortgage. I'm not going to live to pay for some car, a piece of metal, a hunk of metal that's to use to create ego structure for somebody who I don't even know. You know, it's like what? Your mind is so polluted sometimes that you look around what you're doing and realize what you're doing. You say, what the hell? You know, it's bizarre. So I reached that point and I basically sold everything, became an ultra minimalist, and started traveling all over the world, you know, doing clinics and playing and living for music and drums, okay? I don't regret that decision one bit. Okay, it was the best thing I ever did in my life. It allowed me to expand as a player, to get where I am today as a musician, and to realize my ultimate destiny, let's say. The destiny of that kid, that 8-year-old kid that I used to think, or that 2-year-old kid that I used to think, oh, when I'm grown up, I'm going to be a drummer and I'm going to do this, and I always wondered what I was going to look like, what I was going to be like, you know. I decided I'm not going to let that kid down. Okay, but there were many sacrifices along the way, many. My lesson site, for example, I sank so much money into that. Every penny I earned went into my products, my career, my music, and every penny I earned went into those things. I didn't buy another fancy car. I didn't, live high on the hog in some penthouse, you know. Everything I did was aimed at drumming and not letting anything interfere with that, okay? So there's a price to pay, but there's a reward for that also. Now, again, if you are in a situation where you have other obligations, like a kid, for example, that can't be done the way I did it, you know. Also, I made sure that I had no one to answer to, right? I didn't want to bring another human being into this world when I had this thing with drums, music, so strong, you know. I mean, some guys can do it. Some guys are excellent musicians and they have kids and they're very successful in their music life and stuff like that. But that just wasn't in the cards for me. I don't. First of all, I'm not a big Kids fan, so that was kind of easy, you know. It was an easy give up, let's say. But there are many other things that weren't so easy. Now, if you're in that situation, okay, you just have to accept what's here, and you have to take responsibility. And of course, you have to have the mindset that you have to maximize your time on the kit. Okay, now there's tons of ways to get around this. It's not the end of the world because you know, have other obligations that take you away from drumming. It's not the end of the world. Not everybody, even if you do what I did, not everybody is gonna play with Sting or whoever, if you care about that. I don't. Not everybody is gonna get to play the ultimate gig that you want to play, you know. For me, I realized that a long time ago. And so I said, what's the ultimate gig I want to do? And it ended up coming to my mind. I want to do the Phil Maturano band, you know, the Phil Maturano trio. I want to play my music the way I want to. And I don't want anybody telling me what to play in the songs, you know. I worked for so many people and so many trying to tell you what to play here, what to play there, or you had to play exactly like the record or record. No, man, that's been over for me for decades, right? A long time ago. But I couldn't live that way. So to maximize your time on the kit with other obligations you have, the first thing I think is to have your head together. Keep your ego in check. Don't feel bad because you don't have 8 hours a day to practice, but maximize your practice time, okay? Use the most advanced concepts in practicing to do in 4 hours what some guys do in 12, to do in 2 hours what some guys do in 6, all right? There are ways to do this. You just have to be super knowledgeable. Now, if you love drumming, why wouldn't you do this? You know, what are you waiting for? What exactly are you waiting for? There's always that question in my mind. You know, so I know so many guys that love drums and they're wow, okay, but if you love drums, what are you waiting for? You know, just get on the kit and play, but play like a pro, meaning take responsibility for what you're doing. Just don't do random stuff and think that you're going to get somewhere. To accomplish the other side of the spiritual journey, you have to see progress in your playing, and you have to have the ability to express yourself, right? That ability has to be developed. And if you feel like you're not reaching that, you know, and you have all these other problems, and you have a car and a wife and lawsuits or whatever you got going on, then you're going to get wrecked, okay? And you're going to end up not wanting to play anymore, or sad, or, you know, feel like you didn't accomplish what you set out to do, which is a real bummer. Now, my take on all of that is, if drumming is a spiritual journey, then you can be at peace knowing that every day that you're on the kit, you're in touch with that energy. Even if it's only 1 hour a day, you're in touch with that energy and it's a part of you. Okay? Now, do I practice 8 hours a day? No. I'm past, I don't do that anymore, you know? I have too many things to do, first of all, and the phase where I'm at 8 hours a day, maybe if I'm doing a clinic tour, then I go through a 1 month, a 2 month phase where I do that. But believe me, I do it with purpose, intention, and very clear goals. And it's just randomly I sit there for 8 hours and pound, break my butt, you know, wasting my time. As long as you're in touch with drumming, you will never lose that joy, that feeling like you're a drummer, and the feeling like it's a part of you, and somehow the dream is still alive. You know, I hate to call it a dream because it's not a dream, it's a calling, okay? It's a mission. It's a quest. Drumming is a quest. That's what it is. All right? Drumming, since the most ancient times, is something super spiritual. I mean, look at the shamans, you know, the witch doctors, they use drumming to create hypnagogia, to create a state of hypnosis, to transport you into another world, let's say, to bring you out of your body. You know, that's a huge part of drumming, which gets ignored in favor of, you know, crisscrossing your sticks and doing a little faster. What the, you know, that's not drumming. Okay, that's athletics. It's a whole other thing. It's showing off. It's not. Now, if you do it at the appropriate moment, musically, that's a whole other story. But I don't see that going on a whole lot. Okay, and if you see the greatest musicians, not drummers only, musicians, nobody does that. You know, I see people putting music in front of whatever drum tricks, you know. I see one guy who's like doing double bass drum, blow drying his hair and brushing his teeth while doing double bass drum. That's just in a circus, man. It's a circus. It's not music, okay? Does it have its place? Well, if you want to be entertained, you know, you want entertainment. That's not entertaining to me. It's just sad, you know. But maybe to some people it is. Should you aim for that though? No, because it's going to leave you empty inside. I know those guys that did that early in their career. Where are they now? Empty, my friend. Depression, no connection to music, no connection to drumming, just the physicality of it. And what happens when you can't do that anymore? You know, I also know guys like that. When something happens, they can't do that anymore, and then suddenly they're freaking out because their ego is attached to that physicality instead of having a healthy relationship with drumming. All right. I don't know if I'm going on too long about this, but it's a very, very important topic that that of course I think is not talked about because first of all, I don't think people have verbalized enough, and perhaps, you know, they're too scared, especially young guys. You know, they're too scared to talk about these things. They don't have anybody they can trust, you know, or their friends think they're wimpy if they talk about this. And in reality, you know, the ability to project yourself into the future in your mind and picture yourself 10, 15, 20 years from now, that's a huge ability. And if you don't have that ability, you just end up, you know, drifting in nothingness and ego and being taken by whatever comes your way in life. You know, I never let that happen to my drumming. No matter what anybody said, no matter what happened around me, I always put drumming first. And if I had to not have a car, the fancy car, and not have a fancy apartment, who cares, right? Those things come and go. I've seen millionaires become poor. I've seen poor people become millionaires and then lose it all again and then become, who cares? But the thing is, you know, drumming, like I said, it's, if you want to have a healthy relationship with it, it's got to be your friend. It's got to be in that zone where it's something sacred, like the deepest part of you. But you can't be attached to it either. You can't have your value as a human being attached to that, okay? It's like it's got to be a companion to you as an artist. And perhaps even, you know, you can even have the ability to shift from drums into another art form, parallel art form, which is something I'm going to talk about in another video. Okay, because it's too deep of a subject. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed this, and I hope it helps in some way or other. Okay, again, thanks for the super thanks, and if you want to check out the lesson site, just you can WhatsApp me, there's the numbers in the description, or go to philmatrano.com and have a look. We have the most innovative curriculum on the planet, most advanced learning concepts, and I hope you'll have a look. Okay, folks, many greetings to all. Peace.